Right, good morning members, it's 9:30, let's make a start. Welcome to the meeting of the Highways Committee taking place on Tuesday the 15th of February 2022. I'm Richard Ormerod, chair of this committee. The usual housekeeping things, can I ask everyone to switch off mobile phones or put them on silent mode. Please keep microphones switched off unless I invite you to speak. And when invited to speak, please switch on the microphone nearest to you and introduce yourself. Thanks. Now, before we start, I'm sure members were as shocked and saddened as I was to learn of the death of our fellow committee member, Councillor Mark Idwal-Roberts, late last year. Sadly, I never got the chance to get to know Mark on a personal level, but I know he was highly regarded by colleagues and residents. And I know we've already paid our respects at full council, but as he was a member of this committee, I'd like us now to stand for a moment's silence to remember our fellow committee member, Mark Idwal-Roberts. Thank you, members. Okay, so also in attendance today we have several officers. I'm going to go around and one by one and ask them to introduce themselves. So starting with Dave.
Good morning everybody, I'm Dave Lewin, I'm the Traffic Manager for the County Council.
Morning all, I'm Kieran Morley, the Traffic Management Section Manager.
Good morning, I'm Peter Broxton, part of Major Projects in the Engineering team.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. I'm Claire Cuskin, the Legal Officer to the Committee.
Good morning, I'm Joanne McCall, Committee Services.
Thank you, and it's John's first meeting of the Highways Committee, so nice to see you, welcome, and good luck, and hope you enjoy it in a strange sort of way. Right, so moving on to the agenda, item number 1 is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
We do. We've received apologies from Councillor Bell and Councillor Robson.
Thank you. Any others? No, good. Item number 2, have we any substitute members?
No substitute members today, Chair.
Right. Okay. Item 3 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of December 2021. Of course, we didn't have a January meeting this year. Do we agree I sign those as a correct record? That's moved by Councillor Boyd. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Simpson, thank you. All agreed? Great, thank you. Item number 4 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members? Okay. If you do think of any through the meeting, do let me know. Thank you. Right, on to the main business. The first item is, well, the first major item, item number 5 on the agenda, which is Barnard Castle Parking and Waiting Restrictions Amendment Order. So can I ask Dave Lewin to take us through the presentation today?
Certainly, thank you, Chair. Today we have three areas of the county where we're proposing to make amendments to existing traffic regulation orders. These are in Barnard Castle, Shotley Bridge and Consett. Consultation for all three areas is being carried out in accordance with the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984 and the statutory instrument 2489. Objections have been received and committee is now being asked to consider the proposals and objections and decide in principle how to proceed, which will then guide the corporate director in exercise of delegate decision making. So the first today is in Barnard Castle. We're proposing to amend the traffic regulation order to address concerns regarding accessibility, visibility and road safety at a number of locations. So there are four areas in Barnard Castle where we're proposing changes. The first being Kirk View, Bede Road and Churchill Road, which is location 1 at the top right of the slide. So we have reports for Kirkview and Bede Road, reports from local residents about parking at certain locations causing visibility and road safety concerns and access issues for themselves, emergency services and refuse vehicles. To resolve these issues, we are proposing to introduce no waiting and any time restrictions, that's double yellow line restrictions, on both sides of the junctions of Kirkview, Bede Road, which is a junction with the A67. Site visits have been conducted with a local member who agreed and supported the proposals. Churchill Road has the same issue as Kirkview and Bede Road. However, the police have also requested action to address road safety concerns at that location. Once again, we're proposing double yellow lines, so no waiting at any time at the junction of Churchill Road and Victoria Road. This is an extract from the traffic regulation order plans. And it's shown the areas of concern. The objectors are, or locations of objectors are highlighted in red, and the proposals, the double yellow lines, are the shaded yellow or amber. I'm not sure how clear they are on that plan, but that's what we've got. We sent out 98 ballot cards to directly affected frontages, and our ballot card is, we introduced these to try and encourage responses. So the prepaid cards, and it's basically got a tick box, are you in favour, are you against the proposals. We've received 46 responses in favour of the proposals and 5 objections were received from the affected frontages, and as I say, the affected frontages who objected are highlighted red on the plan. The Kirkview objections, in a nutshell, were they require access outside their property, do not believe there are any issues and do not like yellow lines everywhere, and it could push vehicles to park both sides of the A67 and restrict traffic flow. Our response to that is that the proposals don't cover any accesses. As you can see, the proposals are to go between the two arrowheads, so essentially protect the junction. We have had cases and been told that refuse vehicles have been unable to access the area. Restrictions only cover key areas of concern. The Rule 243 of the Highway Code, which is a code of practice, says vehicles should not park within 10 metres or 32 feet of a junction. And there is unrestricted parking elsewhere on Bede Road and in the area, so any displaced parking will be accommodated in the area. As you can see from those photographs, parking close to that junction will actually block the footpath, and that is the main route to Staindrop School, Teesdale School. So it is quite heavily trafficked with children, and it will block, parking there will block drop curbs. So yellow lines to prevent parking there will actually benefit a whole host of users. Bede Road, objections to Bede Road. Again, it's a similar proposal. We're protecting the junction area. The objection received was lines will block access and egress for residents' properties on Bede Road, and it will permit parking would resolve the problems. Our response to those objections is that the proposals, again, don't cover the access. They won't block anything. They will actually improve access. Vehicles can load and unload from double yellow lines, and you can board and alight from double yellow lines, so actually servicing any properties will not be impacted. Again, restrictions only cover the key areas of concern, which is blocking pedestrian routes and causing visibility issues and obstruction issues. Again, the Highway Code Rule 243 is you should not park within 10 metres of a junction. Permit parking has been investigated and consulted on in this location in the last year or so, but the area didn't meet the criteria set out within our policy document, so that was not progressed. Churchill Road, this is a similar, again, it's the junction area. We haven't received any objections to this one, but because it's in the same traffic regulation or in the same area, we've included it in the slides. But this is the one where the police asked us to look at improving the access at the junction. As you can see from the photograph on the top, on the right-hand side there, that vehicle is parked right on the junction, and if you're pulling out of there, your visibility is going to be impacted by that. So these proposals will deal with that sort of issue. The next area we're looking at is Victoria Road, which is right middle on the plan. It's actually the centre of the plan, but the label is right middle. Again, Victoria Road is, the concerns are about visibility and access raised by local residents. The proposal is to extend no waiting at any time restriction, so double yellow lines on the south side of Victoria Road adjacent to number 70. Once again, you'll see there's a theme to these, the sequence of events here. We show you an aerial photograph and then we show you the plan, so you get used to that as we go through. We sent out 7 ballots in this location. We received 2 responses in favour of the proposals and 1 objection was received from a frontage. Again, the frontage is shown red, it's at the bottom of that plan. Now, from the photographs, you'll see that if you look at the left-hand photograph, you can see there's a kink in the road. And what the issue is, if you then look at the right-hand photograph, if a vehicle's parked in between the 2 arrowheads, as you approach it from the other side of the bend, you can't necessarily see if there's a vehicle overtaking it on the wrong side of the road as it approaches you. So it's an intervisibility issue that we're trying to resolve here. We have had an objection, as I say, and the objection stated that any vehicle parked here causes no more obstruction than elsewhere on Victoria Road and is never parked on the footpath. Our response is we have had reports of obstructive parking and visibility issues. Forward visibility is compromised by the curvature of the road. The proposals will improve access and intervisibility at this location. There is unrestricted parking elsewhere in the surrounding location. Location 3 is Hall Street, which is the labels on the left middle of the plan. Hall Street residents have raised concerns about access and obstructive parking on the south side of Hall Street. Reports of vehicles unable to gain access, including refuse and emergency vehicles. The proposals will once again introduce no waiting at any time, which is double yellow line restrictions on the south side of Hall Street. We sent out 21 ballots to directly affected frontages. 3 objections were received and 2 responses were in favour. You can see from the plan on the left-hand side, highlighted red, the location of the objectors and the location of the proposals. Now, this is Hall Street, and the tendency is for vehicles to park on the north side of Hall Street. However, if anything was to park on the south side, where the arrowheads are, obviously that just completely blocks the road. And you can see on the photograph on the right-hand side, we've got existing double yellow lines that stretch to a certain point, but don't extend the full length. Objections to the proposals are the current situation is okay with no major issues. Where would residents park? It's unfair to push problems onto other streets. Will further reduce parking spaces, and again a request for permit parking. So our response to those objections is that Hall Street is a narrow residential road, and we have been told that access and obstructive parking takes place. Reports of vehicles unable to gain access, including emergency vehicles. Vehicles very rarely park on this side of the carriageway. However, the proposals are to reduce this further and formalise the restrictions and discourage opportunist parking to maintain access. As you can imagine, in an area like this, the likelihood of somebody parking long term there is probably unlikely. However, opportunist parking, if somebody's just popping in to deliver something or drop something off, or just going to be a few minutes, they'll think it's okay, but that actually will prevent an emergency vehicle responding. So that's our response. The objections are our response to that one. We're proposing double yellow lines to stretch between the arrowheads on there. And now we're on to location 4, which is Birch Road, Park Terrace, which is at the bottom of the plan. Again, local residents have raised concerns regarding visibility issues due to obstructive parking. We're proposing double yellow lines once again to restrict parking on the junction of Birch Road and Park Terrace with Newgate Street. Newgate, I think it is. Objection received from the 26 ballots we sent out. We got 1 objection. We got 9 responses in favour. The objection is from the property highlighted red on the plan, which is the church, I believe. Now, as you can see, once again from the photograph, we're just trying to prevent people from parking at the junction, which will impact anybody parked there, impacts pedestrians. You can see there's 2 drop curbs there, and also your visibility is impaired if you're trying to pull out of that junction or pull into that junction. The objections were for Birch Road. There's no off-street parking. They are reliant upon street parking provision for those attending church. They require hearses to park at the steps to the church, as well as wedding cars, and they feel an advisory white line should be installed rather than yellow lines. Our response to that is there is unrestricted on-street parking in the vicinity, and you can see if you're on that photograph beyond the arrowheads, there's nothing to stop anybody parking up there, so that's unrestricted parking in the vicinity. Queen Street car park is 290 metres away, so there is off-street parking within a short distance. Hearses associated with funerals can conduct their business whilst parked on the yellow lines. Wedding cars are able to drop off and pick up on the yellow lines, but they can't park there for the duration of the service because it would cause an obstruction and visibility issues. The proposed double yellow lines in these locations are to reduce and highlight where vehicles should not be parked in reference to the highway code, Road 243 again. And it's in the best interest of pedestrian and road safety to introduce the restrictions. Local county council has also witnessed parking on the junction causing road safety concerns. So in summary, we have 4 areas in Bardon Castle where we are proposing to introduce no waiting at any time restrictions in response to concerns raised regarding road safety and accessibility. Objections have been received, and officers recommend committee resolve to set aside the objections and endorse the proposals in principle, which will then guide the corporate director in exercise of delegated decision making. That concludes this presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dave. That's a very informative presentation. Well, it's a very popular town, isn't it? And I imagine parking is at a premium. I gather it's got some very good opticians, Barnard Castle, that people travel long distances for. So we move on to representations now. Now this order straddles the 2 Barnard Castle divisions. So we've got potentially 4 local members who could speak, but I don't think any of them are here. Have we got any local members? We don't. So we have, as Dave said, received some objections. Are there any objectors here wishing to speak? Lady at the back there. Have you got a microphone? If you could just introduce yourself, and thank you for coming. And then you have you have 5 minutes. Well, it says here collectively, but I think it is. Yeah, I think you have got the 5 minutes for yourself if you want them. Thank you.
Oh, good morning. My name is Pauline Rutter. I have lived on the north side of Bede Road for 40 years. So obviously I've seen a lot of changes. My objection is if the parking Rule 243 was enforced, yellow lines wouldn't be necessary. I have seen very few occasions of cars parked right down to the junction. Now, you state there is plenty of parking on the south side of Bede Road. The problem in Kirk View is householders from the south side of Bede Road not being able to park on Bede Road and therefore parking in Kirk View. And obviously householders in Bede Road with 2 cars. The issue with the refuse lorry, I've only known of 2 occasions in the last year when my bin wasn't collected. But on a separate issue, if the bin lorry time was changed, that could be alleviated. 7:30 on a Friday morning is when you're going to find most parked vehicles in Kirk View. What else was I going to say? Obviously, I appreciate that, as I say, I haven't seen, yes, the school is just up the road, but I've never seen any problems with school children having to walk around parked cars. And as I said, I've known times when visitors to my property couldn't get into the south side of Bede Road, couldn't get into Kirk View, and by tradition we've never parked on the north side of Bede Road all the years I've been there, so that pushes the parking from Bede Road actually onto Victoria Road and Churchill Road. So it's not as straightforward as it may appear, because I say a lot of people, households now have 2 cars. So basically, I think that's covered my notes of why I don't think it's necessary, because I've never seen anyone enforcing parking restrictions on that junction. I have on the current no waiting area on the corner of Bede Road and Victoria Road, but because there are double yellow lines there, but I've only seen 1 enforcement there in 40 years as well. So I just don't see that they're necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs Rutter, for sparing the time to come and address the committee today. Can I ask Dave and Claire if they have any further comments or observations to make on this one?
Thank you, Chair. Just with regard to the enforcement of Rule 243, that would be a police matter. It's the Rule 243 is Highway Code, which is Code of Conduct, and it says you should not. It does not say you must not. So it's not actually illegal. However, parking within that closer distance to a junction does obviously cause visibility and manoeuvring problems and problems for pedestrians. I know so there isn't any enforcement action that we can take, because civil parking enforcement means that it's not a criminal offence anymore. But we enforce yellow lines. We do not enforce the Highway Code. We cannot enforce the Highway Code. The proposal is to introduce yellow lines, which means we can enforce the restrictions, and the issue has been raised with us. We haven't gone looking for problems. People have raised the issue of accessibility, visibility, and vehicles not being able to get around the junction, and also of pedestrians being blocked from crossing the road. So our proposal is to introduce yellow lines to allow effective enforcement to prevent vehicles from parking there. Inevitably, in an area as popular as Barnard Castle, there will be occasions when you cannot park directly outside of your property, but there is always parking available in the nearby vicinity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments from on the legal side, Claire?
No, Chair.
Right, we'll open it up to the to the committee then. Any members wishing to speak? I've got Councillor David Boyes. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. It seems to me this is just formalising what is already there. I appreciate what the objector said, that nobody parks outside of that particular road, but all this is doing is formalising it. It's not like sort of creating a new enforcement order as in the terms of it's stopping people from parking who were already parking there. If the objector says people weren't parking there just occasionally, well, this is just formalising the situation. And I empathise with what the objector and other people in Barnard Castle said. You know, when Barnard Castle was created, I don't think they had 21st century traffic problems in mind. But the other orders, it just seems as though it's the selfishness of residents who are prepared to park on the corner when people can't see to get across the road, especially the one near the school. If school children are trying to get through and they've got cars that are parked there, even occasionally, it's going to make it a lot more difficult to see past the car to see if it's safe to cross that particular road. Just with regards to the one at Church, Dave, where you said that hearses and wedding cars can park there on the yellow lines, is that going to be clarified with a notice to say there's going to be a certain amount of time that a hearse or a wedding car can stop there before they would before the parking enforcement orders would take notice?
I'll just come back on that, Chair. With any kind of double yellow line restriction, you can carry out certain activities, and that will be in the order. It highlights the fact that you can do that, and as long as that activity is being undertaken, you won't receive a ticket, if you like. So it can be there as long as it takes to carry out the activity. So there isn't a set length of time.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Boyes. I was actually going to ask a similar question about the church. So, just to clarify, what we're saying is that hearses, wedding cars, and so on can drop off, if that's the right word, but not stay for the whole service. They'd have to find somewhere else.
Yeah, that's right.
In between.
The wedding car in particular, you can board on the light, so they can stop there as long as it may be necessary to allow people to get in, get out. But obviously parking there does cause a road safety hazard. With a hearse, obviously we'd be a lot more sensitive, and if it needs to be there for the duration, then we would that would be permitted.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Dave. Councillor Joanne Howie.
Good morning. Thank you for the report on this as well. I know the areas very, very well. My children go to Teesdale School as well, so we do know the areas. I know how congested it can get around there with people parking on those corners. I have seen it myself. We've been blocked. The A67 along past there as well can get, with the buses, can get quite blocked with other traffic as well, lorries that use the area. So it can cause problems with people trying to cross that road to see what's coming, to see what's happening. So I do agree with all these going on. The same with, which one was it, Victoria Road, going up and down there. It's quite a bit of a rat run down to Morrison's and things like that as well. So I do feel that would be really good there to stop people on both sides, because sometimes when you try to swerve and get blocked, it can cause, I have waited there for a while before as well. The one outside the church I do agree with, because not for the church reasons, but when you've got activities on, say, at the Bowes Museum, or the visitors in the town obviously have gone to the maximum. There's loads there. Residents are struggling to park. You've got people parking who want to work in the town. It's not just the residents who are parking there. It's anyone, and people are just parking wherever they can. The car parks can get very full. And it is getting difficult to see around those corners now more than ever, due to people just parking wherever they want. I've seen people in wheelchairs struggling to get across those roads because the drop curbs are being parked over as well. So I'm in agreement with the officers here. I think all that would really benefit the town at being done. Thank you.
Yes, I'll go along with that. And of course, it's not just the museum, is it? It's the other school next door to that. Councillor Charlie Kay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Charlie Kay, Coundon Division. I know I know Barnacastle quite well, actually. I'm not an infrequent visitor to the town, actually. It is a nice place to spend a Sunday afternoon, although it does get very congested. Just for my own benefit, for clarification, which is the road that comes out the back of what I would call Morrison's car park, although it isn't Morrison's, it belongs to Durham County Council, and then meets up with the A67 up past the Richardson Hospital? Which road is that? Victoria. Right, well, I would support, to be honest, any attempt to alleviate the traffic congestion in Victoria Road, because using it regularly, I can see, and I have seen issues. I haven't contributed to them, obviously, but I have seen issues on that road on a Sunday afternoon with traffic inconsiderately parking. My question is, when I get round to it, where are the displaced cars from Victoria Road actually going to park? Are they going to park outside somebody else's house, or is there off-street parking for those residents? Because it's all very well saying that there's a large car park nearby, but it's not free. Well, it's free after 2, I think, but it's not free. So where would these vehicles actually go where they wouldn't cause an inconsiderate operation somewhere else in the nearby vicinity?
The short answer is anywhere that it's legal to do so, that's where they would go. We can't sort of point them to a particular direction, and unfortunately the way society is, people would drive to bed if they get the car up the stairs, so they want to be as close as possible to where they want to be, and they want to park as close as possible. So anybody displaced will migrate to the nearest area that's that they deem suitable.
Thank you. Councillor Danny Wood.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of comments, largely in relation to Hall Street and also the Birch Road Park Terrace one. Just on the slide you showed us about Hall Street, the side that we were looking at putting yellow lines on, it did look like to one side of that there were already some sort of markings. Yeah, on the left-hand side of the left picture, it looks like there are those road markings at the bottom left. Are they existing double yellow lines, or is that just something on the carriageway?
I'd like to refer to the officer on that one, because I'm not entirely sure whether there's a gap in the yellow lines or whether that's just some markings.
The point I was going to make was just if they are, then can we get those repainted as well?
Oh, all right, yeah, absolutely. We'll refresh everything in the street when we've got the crew there.
Okay,
yeah.
And then just in relation to, obviously, Birch Road and Park Terrace, obviously you've explained that where there aren't double yellow lines on a junction, it's the police that are responsible, but the highway code says should not rather than must not. So it's up to police discretion at the moment whether or not a wedding vehicle would be targeted for enforcement. Just in looking at this, have officers looked at what else they could do rather than putting double yellow lines all the way outside the church? And the main thing that springs to mind is I'm aware of, for example, community centres in various parts of the county where there's sort of a zigzag and a keep clear marking. I've asked about this at one of our local community centres, and it's not. It's largely there to sort of protect that space, so when they have buses and things like that, coaches and things like that, it means that there aren't already residential vehicles parked there. I know of at least one of them in our area that was repainted a couple of years ago, so I assume that is like well within the sort of policy when they've looked at the traffic regulation orders and the road markings. But I assume the church has been there for quite some time. So just in light of that, have we looked at whether or not some sort of keep clear marking there would keep that side of the junction more clear than it was before without impacting on the sort of responsibilities and activities of the church? Thanks.
I'll come back on that one, Chair. A keep clear marking is an advisory marking that is enforced by the police, and it would have essentially the same effect as just parking near a junction. An officer would have to determine whether a vehicle parked there was causing an issue. A yellow line is an actual contravention of a restriction, and we can issue penalties for that contravention. So it's much more adhered to, if you like, and once you start putting a keep clear and then allowing people to park on it, it just falls into disrepute, and people say, well, why is it okay for somebody to park there and not me? And you'll find that it very rarely gets enforced.
Thank you. Any other members wishing to speak? No, okay. Does anybody want to propose anything? Councillor Boyce.
Yeah, I propose approval of all weighting restrictions as set out by Dave.
I'll second that one.
And Councillor Howie to second. Thank you very much. Councillor Kay.
Clarification, we're actually, this is a recommendation to the director under delegated powers. It's a steer, if you like, isn't it? We're not making a decision this morning, am I correct?
That's correct, Councillor Kay, yes. So that's been moved and seconded. So we move to the vote. All those in favour of the proposal, please show. Okay. Any against? Any abstentions? Nope, that is clearly carried then. Thank you very much. So we go on then to item 6, which is the Black Hill and Shotley Bridge Parking and Waiting Restrictions Amendment Order. And it's over to Dave again for this one.
Thank you, Chair. This is it should be a shorter presentation. We've got the longer one out of the way now. So the second for consideration today is Shotley Bridge, or Black Hill and Shotley Bridge. We're proposing to amend the existing traffic regulation order to address concerns regarding accessibility, visibility and road safety. Must remember to press the button on that one as well as the one on my computer. We've been requested from Durham County Council's Corporate Property and Land to introduce no waiting at any time restrictions on Wood Street. In actual fact, boulders have been placed on the verge, which is actually DCC land, DCC owned land, by local residents to prevent people parking on the verge. Unfortunately, unfortunately, the boulders constitute an obstruction of the highway and they need to be removed. And the concern is that once they're removed, people will revert back to parking on the verge. No waiting at any time restrictions will allow us to effectively enforce the parking restrictions at the junction of Wood Street and Swordsmith Lane. Site visits have been conducted with a local member who agreed and supported the proposals. As you can see, the yellow on the plan is what we're proposing, double yellow lines at the junction. We sent out 11 ballot papers, ballot cards. We had 3 responses who were in favour and 1 objection. The objection is from a local resident there. Both local members support the proposals as well as Durham Constabulary. As you can see from the photographs, the objections relating to Wood Street is parking is hard enough in the street and resident-only parking should be issued instead of the yellow lines. Our response to that is the restrictions are proposed to prevent people from parking their vehicles on the junction. Once again, it's the Highway Code Rule 243. Proposals to improve access and road safety, improve visibility. Permit parking would not meet the criteria in our policy document. Proposals are supported by Durham Constabulary local members. There is unrestricted parking in the surrounding area. As you can see from the next... Oh, what's happened there? Oh, there we go. The cars regularly park on one side of the road if the boulders were removed, and you can see the boulders clearly in the bottom right photograph. But if you on the right of the bottom right, but if you see on the left of the bottom right, that's a different time of year, and you can't actually see the boulders, which becomes a hazard in itself. If the concern is if those boulders were removed, people would start parking on there, and with parking on the other side of the road, just causes accessibility issues. It would actually mean larger vehicles couldn't get through. So yeah, there's a road safety hazard, there's junction hazard, there's accessibility issues. So in summary, we're proposing to introduce restrictions in response to concerns raised regarding obstructive parking and parking impact on road safety and accessibility. Objections have been received, and officers recommend committee to resolve to set aside the objections and endorse the proposals in principle, which will then guide the corporate director in the exercise of delegated decision making. I said that would be a short one. That concludes that presentation, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Dave. On to representations there, local members. Now, Councillor Early, do you wish to speak as local member? You can also speak as a committee member as well. You get 2 shots if you want to. So, yeah, please go ahead, Councillor.
Thanks. I mean, I hope this works. I'm at a disadvantage in this committee in that I don't drive, but I do get a lot of complaints about parking, and that particular area along Wood Street has a number of problems. And the only thing I would ask, and well, if not indeed beg of the officers, is that maybe we could try and have a review in 6 months' time of the entire area, because there's a lot of issues. I hope this resolves a bit of it, but it's not going to resolve all of the problems along that area, which is simply down to, you know, some inconsiderate parking, and perhaps, you know, an overdevelopment of an area which is, like a lot of the county, a lot of old roads that were never meant to be, you know, have houses with 2 cars or 3 cars parking on them. But it is beginning to cause a bit of conflict in the area, and that concerns me greatly, Chair. So I'm making a plea that the officers maybe take another look in 6 months and see if there's anything we can do to relieve the position. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, I don't think we have any objectors here. There were objections, but I don't think there's anyone here to speak. Correct me if I'm wrong. No. Okay. In that case, yeah. Anything from Dave or Claire on this one?
Nothing from me, Chair.
Okay, open it up to the committee then. Any members wishing to speak on this? Councillor Boyes.
Thanks, Chair. Just a point of clarification, David, with regard to those boulders, are we suggesting we're going to take those boulders away and just put the parking enforcement lines on? Because it horrified me when I saw the grass growing over, and if anybody was to park on there, would we be liable if somebody did, like, sort of clatter the car into it at the moment?
We would. They are classed as an obstruction of the highway, an illegal obstruction of the highway. Yeah, it's our land. They're on our land. If anybody hit them, we would be responsible. So that is the whole premise of this: is to remove those boulders to make it safe. But in removing the boulders, people will be attracted to park there again. So we're going to put yellow lines to replace the boulders.
Thank you. Any other members? Councillor Fraser-Tinsley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just listening to that last answer, I think it makes it more clear to me than it was previously that we should move ahead with this and with a recommendation from the officers. So I'd move that we accept this. But I would have regard as well to Councillor Early's comments earlier there that if it is possible just to look at the wider area because there's clearly issues here. So thank you, Chair. So I formally move acceptance of officers' recommendation. Thank you.
Right, so it's been moved that we endorse this in principle. Again, it's an in principle thing with the final decision to be made by the corporate director. It's been moved by Councillor Tinsley. Is there a seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Councillor Duffy, thank you. And so we'll move to the vote then. All in favour, please show. I think that is unanimous. Yep. Thank you. So on to then item 7, which is another parking and waiting restrictions amendment order, this time in concert. Thank you. Over to Dave.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the third and final area today is concert, and once again we're proposing to amend the existing traffic regulation order to address concerns raised by the public and members. We have 2 areas in this traffic regulation order that we're going to look at today. The First area is Victoria Road, and that's the rear of Victoria Road, and we're proposing no waiting at any time. So that is the bottom left of that plan there. We've got reports from local residents highlighting access issues for themselves, for emergency service vehicles and refuse vehicles. Residents have also noted that the manner of parking on some occasions is obstructive and causes visibility and road safety concerns. We're proposing to introduce double yellow lines, which is no waiting at any time restrictions on the southwest side of the rear of Victoria Road for the full extent. Site visits have been conducted with a local member who agreed and supported the proposals. We have 47 ballot papers were sent out, 2 objections were received and 2 responses in favour of the proposals. The objections are from the building or the property highlighted red on the plan. Now, as you can see, this is probably the best photograph or the best slide. It shows that what we're proposing is double yellow lines along the right hand side of that left hand picture. As you can see, parking occurs naturally on the left hand side, but anybody parking on the right hand side will cause an issue and actually block the road. The objections that we received saying that parking has not affected the flow of traffic on this road. It's been used for parking, loading, unloading for businesses for over a decade. They've parked there for 7.5 years with no issues, and they need to be in and out for deliveries, and customers need access. Our response are that we have received reports regarding access issues in this location. Local member have highlighted the issue. Vehicles parked on both sides of the road remove access for residents, business owners, deliveries and emergency vehicles, and that's clear to see. Proposals allow for vehicles to board and alight, as well as load and unload. So commercial activity, if you're just pulling up to load and unload or drop somebody or pick somebody up, that's still permitted on yellow lines. So that the actual service in the building shouldn't be impacted. But the proposals that we're proposing, the restrictions we're proposing, will improve access and reduce obstructive parking. The next area we're looking at is Waterfront Gardens, which is the sort of right middle of the slide. We're looking at restricted waiting and loading, so it's not double yellow lines this time, it's single yellow lines, and it's restricted waiting for Monday, Friday, 8:30 a.m. till 9:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. till 3:30 p.m. So 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon. You'll have guessed by now that coincides with school times. So this is requests from the local county councillor and residents due to safety concerns in this location at dropping off and picking up times. There are 2 schools in the area, St Patrick's Primary and Concert Academy, and when they're dropping off and picking up, it creates obstructive parking and causing safety concerns for pedestrians, as well as access concerns. This location is subject to obstructive parking at drop-off times, as I've said, causing access and traffic flow issues for residents and emergency services and other users. It's proposed to introduce the restrictions on Waterfront Gardens adjacent to the pedestrian access into St Patrick's Roman Catholic Primary School. This will improve visibility and safety for school children, improve traffic flow, access and reduce obstructive parking in this location. Site visits have been conducted with a local member who agreed and supported the proposals. 17 ballot cards were sent out on this occasion, 2 objections and 2 in favour. The objections were from the one property that's highlighted red and also from a parent of a school child. The objectors said that the proposals will only move traffic further into the estate, causing difficulty for residents. Restrictions will push vehicles to other areas where there is limited parking availability and they feel that the location are already dangerous for students. Parking on Waterfront Gardens is sensible and the newly built property should expect some level of disruption at school times as they were aware of the nearby schools. Our response to that is that there are 2 schools in the vicinity and the obstructive parking is causing road safety concerns for students. The location is subject to obstructive parking at school gate drop-off and pick-up times. We know that, we've been told that, we've seen that. Access and traffic flow issues for residents and other users are occurring. Reports of residents missing doctor's appointments and concerns raised regarding access for emergency vehicles at this location have been reported to us. The estate was built more recently than the schools. That's correct. However, this does not justify a reason not to introduce restrictions when safety has been compromised or safety issues have been raised with us. Proposals have been supported by both the police and the local member. So once again, in summary, we have 2 areas in concert where we're proposing to introduce restrictions in response to concerns raised regarding road safety and accessibility. Objections have been received, and officers recommend committee resolve to set aside the objections and endorse the proposals in principle, which will then guide the corporate director in the exercise of delegated decision making. That concludes this presentation, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Dave. We move on to representations. Now, do the local members wish to speak?
Yes,
Councillor Watson.
Yes, yeah,
Thank
please.
you.
Yeah, certainly the officer has summed it up quite well. It's a bit more than just sort of irresponsible parking at Waterfront Gardens, because it's getting really to a situation where it gets violent, because these people, these unreasonable people who insist on dropping their children off in this particular AP area, which is all AP bungalows, and some have ill health as well, do park even in the driveways. And of course, residents are threatening violence in certain situations because they just won't listen. There has to be restrictions. I think, you know, we have drive-through restaurants. Maybe we should have drive-through schools, because I know we've got this problem everywhere. And there should be legislation, really, that there should be definitely parking provided before any new school is built. But this really is serious. And of course, the rear of Victoria Road, that speaks for itself. There's always been problems there, and certainly the double yellow lines will stop that sort of issue happening, because people do get awkward. There's a bit of a loading bay there as well, to the left. Really, they can load and unload if need be, and of course they can do that in yellow lines as well, double yellow lines. So I'm happy with the officer's recommendation. We've had 2 or 3 site visits in effect in the area. So certainly, I would hope the committee would support the recommendations, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Again, I don't think we have any objectors here wishing to speak, so I'll open it up to committee members. Any members? Councillor David Boyce.
Thanks, Chair. Just the one that Councillor Watson has just been referred to is it's next to St Patrick's Catholic Primary School. I guess this is a question for Alex rather than like the officers. It's just in my area, the Catholic school seems to attract people from the whole of the area rather than just that particular catchment area. I think we've got about 4 or 5 other primary schools and 1 RC school. So do people come from other parts of Consett and beyond to park there, and will any accommodation be made for them? But I guess that's a question for, the first bit is a question for Councillor Watson.
Yeah, that is the case.
I'll bring Councillor Watson in. Yeah, Catholic schools do tend to have bigger catchment areas, don't they?
Yeah,
but perhaps,
they do, absolutely.
Perhaps Alex can tell us more.
Yeah, no, that is the case, and certainly there are parking areas, certainly in the Consett area, where residents or these people that's got children going to these schools can park, but it means walking maybe 100 metres or whatever, and really people get really lazy, and you know, if they can drive into the school, they'll do that. They just don't care. They're just totally irresponsible, Chair.
Yeah, a familiar problem across the county, I think. Councillor Fraser-Tinsley is next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the officer earlier said that people would drive their cars to bed if they could get them up the stairs, and I think a lot of parents would drive their children to the desks if they could get the cars down the corridors in the schools. And we come across this problem everywhere. We had a similar situation with the Catholic school in the area I represent a few years ago, and a similar change the regulations, as was proposed here, did have a positive impact. I've looked at both instances here around the school and the other one. I don't see a sustainable reason that would could object to the proposals, and I think in that context I would support it and formally move it, that we accept the recommendations and recommend to the Corporate Director that this is taken forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Angela Sterling.
Hello, I would just like to add to everything Councillor Watson was saying. My ward is very close by. Lots of my residents travel to the school. I have heard of issues of really confrontational behaviour and quite dangerous parking, near misses, kids almost getting knocked over. Concert, it's built up, fair enough, but it's not like Durham City Centre. There are loads of places to park. It is a case of people just being lazy. So I just wanted to echo what everyone else has said, and I'd like to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sterling. Any other members wishing to speak before we go to the vote? It's been moved and seconded that we again endorse this in principle, with the final decision to be made by the Corporate Director. Any other members wishing to speak before we move to the vote? No? Okay then, so will all those in favour of the proposal please show? That's unanimous, thank you. Okay, so item 8 is other business. I haven't been notified of any. I think it might be helpful if one of the officers perhaps briefs members under other business on the how we're going to be doing these meetings in future. Does anybody want to do that? Does anybody know more than I do?
I just what you know, Chair.
My understanding is that this is the last meeting of this committee which is going to be broadcast, and that from the next month we'll be moving out of here into committee room 2, like it used to be, for those that remember. But of course, things in the current climate can change very quickly. So just so members are aware, I believe that is the plan now, that we go back to the traditional meeting room 2, and that we won't be broadcast live anymore. But as I say, everything's subject to change at the moment. So that concludes the business. So I will say a big thank you to members for your attendance. Thank you to officers for all the work that you've done, and thank you to Mrs. Rutcher as well for sparing the time to come and speak to us today. Thank you very much. Have a good day.